Princess Diana is seriously injured and 2 other people have died following a car crash.
We have reports from Paris that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
Their Mercedes crashed at high speed in a tunnel along the River Seine in central Paris.
For years, the life and death of Princess Diana have been surrounded by mystery, rumors, and unanswered questions. But now, a DNA test has uncovered something no one expected, something so shocking that it's making even the royal family nervous. This discovery doesn't just rewrite history, it changes everything we thought we knew about Diana's legacy and her family. Could this finally reveal the truth she tried to protect all along? Join us as we uncover the DNA test that shook the entire UK. The investigation and inquest into Diana's death. When Princess Diana passed away in that tragic car crash in Paris in 1997, the world was left in shock. Millions of people mourned as disbelief filled the air because it seemed impossible that someone so full of life could be gone so suddenly. News channels broadcast the story continuously, and questions about what truly happened began to spread almost immediately. For many, it was not just the death of a public figure, but the loss of a woman who had touched hearts around the world. Her kindness, honesty, and compassion had made her a global icon, and people were desperate to understand how such a beloved figure could die in such a devastating way. In the days that followed, official reports attempted to provide answers, yet instead of easing the public's mind, they raised even more questions. People began to wonder if they were being told the full truth, and that uncertainty lingered for years. The crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel was investigated thoroughly.
Thursday marks 20 years since Princess Diana was killed in a car crash inside a Paris tunnel.
But the conclusions did not satisfy everyone. That is why, long after the official inquiries ended, a new discovery involving Diana's DNA emerged, shaking the entire United Kingdom. But here is the most interesting part. Immediately after the crash, French authorities treated the case as a tragic but straightforward accident. However, as details began to surface, such as the car being followed by paparazzi and the driver, Henry Paul, speeding through the tunnel, doubts began to grow. Many people could not understand why the car was traveling so fast, or how such a fatal incident could occur under those conditions. There were claims, rumors, and theories, and the public demanded clear answers. In response, the French government ordered a full judicial investigation to determine the exact cause of the crash. The inquiry, led by Judge Hervé Stéphan in 1999, became the first major attempt to establish the truth. The investigation involved examining every piece of evidence, testing Henri Paul's blood for alcohol, inspecting the vehicle, and questioning multiple witnesses who had seen the events unfold. After months of analysis, Judge Stéphan reached a conclusion that surprised many. The official findings stated that the crash was caused solely by Henri Paul, who had been driving at an excessive speed while under the influence of alcohol. According to the report, there was no sign of any foul play or outside interference. The tragedy, as the inquiry claimed, was the result of human error and reckless behavior. Even with the official report released to the public, a large number of people refused to accept it. They believed that something far more complex had taken place that night. Many could not bring themselves to believe that Princess Diana, a figure so admired and protected, had died because of one man's poor decisions. Keep watching to find out why. Although the French investigation declared the matter closed, the public remained deeply divided. The findings were simple, but the story did not feel complete. Many across the world believed there were too many unanswered questions. Some eyewitnesses claimed to have seen bright flashes just before the crash, while others reported the presence of suspicious vehicles following Diana's car. Still, the French inquiry dismissed these accounts as unreliable and maintained that Henri Paul's intoxication and speed were the only causes. However, the more the authorities insisted it was an accident, the more people suspected that something was being hidden. Conspiracy theories began to spread rapidly. Some claimed that Diana had become too outspoken and that her independence threatened powerful institutions. Others believed that her relationship with Dodi Fayed was not accepted by the royal establishment. The rumors continued to grow, and the pressure on British authorities became impossible to ignore. Eventually, in 2004, a new and far-reaching investigation was launched under the name Operation Paget. Operation Paget was led by Lord Stevens of the Metropolitan Police, and it aimed to review every conspiracy theory that had circulated since Diana's death. It was one of the largest and most detailed investigations in British history. For 3 years, Lord Stevens and his team examined countless documents, visited the crash site, and re-interviewed witnesses. They even looked into claims that Diana had been pregnant, that her car had been tampered with, and that a mysterious flash of light had caused the crash. The team also analyzed letters allegedly written by Diana, in which she expressed fear for her safety. No detail was considered too small, and no theory was ignored. After an extensive and costly investigation that lasted until 2006, the Operation Paget report reached its conclusion. The findings were almost identical to those of the French inquiry. The British investigators confirmed that the crash had been caused by grossly negligent driving by Henri Paul, combined with the dangerous pursuit by the paparazzi. The report also stated clearly that there was no evidence of a royal conspiracy or any secret plan to harm Princess Diana. It was, according to the official findings, a tragic accident that resulted from poor judgment and reckless behavior. For some, this conclusion brought closure. Yet for many others, it only deepened their suspicion. The idea that one of the most famous women in history could die because of a simple traffic accident seemed impossible to accept. People continued to search for answers because the official explanation felt too ordinary for a tragedy that had shaken the world. The human mind often struggles to accept simple causes behind extraordinary events, and this case was no exception. In 2008, the British judicial system launched yet another formal inquest to examine Diana's death. This inquest was conducted publicly and involved a jury, which gave it greater transparency than the previous investigations. The process was long and emotionally charged. Lawyers, witnesses, and experts presented evidence for months as the world watched closely. When the verdict was finally delivered, it reignited the conversation once again. The jury reached a verdict of unlawful killing, meaning that Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed had died due to gross negligence. The responsibility, according to the jury, lay with Henri Paul and the paparazzi who chased the car that night. Their reckless driving and disregard for safety created the conditions that led to the fatal crash. The jury also pointed out that Diana and Dodi were not wearing seatbelts at the time, which significantly worsened the outcome. Experts testified that if they had been wearing seatbelts, their chances of survival would have been much higher. That single detail became a painful reminder that even small choices can change everything. The 2008 inquest did not find any evidence of royal involvement or government conspiracy. The verdict confirmed once again that the deaths were the result of dangerous driving and tragic circumstances. However, this did not end the public's curiosity or the growing belief that more was left unsaid. Diana's legacy was too powerful, and her story was too emotional for people to simply move on. As time went on, new ideas began to surface. Some theories focused on alleged seatbelt failure, while others mentioned a blinding strobe light that supposedly distracted the driver. Operation Paget had already investigated these claims and found no solid proof behind them. The seatbelts in the car were tested and found to be functional, and there was no credible evidence supporting the flash theory. Both inquiries had looked deeply into these rumors and rejected them as unsubstantiated. Officially, the causes remained the same: intoxication, excessive speed, and the pressure from chasing photographers. Still, people found it difficult to accept that such a simple explanation could account for such a monumental loss. Princess Diana was more than a royal figure. She was a symbol of compassion, courage, and humanity. Her warmth touched millions, and she had become known as the People's Princess for good reason. That is why so many refused to believe her death was only the result of an accident. To them, the story felt incomplete, and the official explanations lacked emotional truth. For years, the questions continued, and the world kept searching for answers that would finally make sense. Then, something entirely unexpected happened. So stay tuned as we delve more into this. the paternity myth and official denials of Prince Harry's father. While the investigation into Princess Diana's tragic death eventually brought some clarity, another rumor continued to shadow her legacy for decades. It was not about the crash or the royal family's response, but about something far more personal. This rumor questioned the identity of her younger son's father and became one of the most persistent tabloid stories in British history. The claim suggested that Prince Harry was not the biological son of King Charles III, but rather of a man named James Hewitt, the former British Army officer who later admitted to an affair with Diana. This story was printed repeatedly, whispered in social circles, and discussed across television networks. Yet the truth had always been available for anyone willing to look at the timeline carefully. Prince Harry, whose full name is Henry Charles Albert David, was born on September 15, 1984. His birth was publicly announced, and his official birth record lists Charles and Diana as his parents. At the time, the media celebrated the arrival of another royal heir, and there was no hint of controversy. Both Diana and Charles were still publicly fulfilling their royal duties, and they had not yet begun the period of emotional distance that would later define their marriage. However, the rumor that later questioned Harry's paternity did not appear until several years after his birth, and its timing alone reveals its weakness. James Hewitt, the man at the center of the speculation, didn't meet Diana until 1986. This means that their introduction happened nearly 2 full years after Prince Harry was born.
I'm supposed to have my head down the loo for most of the day.
She did tell me that.
By that time, Harry was already walking and talking, and his early photographs show a clear resemblance to both of his parents, particularly his father, King Charles. Even a simple comparison of their facial features and expressions shows that the paternity question had little ground to stand on. Diana's relationship with James Hewitt began when she was feeling isolated and emotionally neglected. Their connection developed during a period when Charles's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles was still ongoing. Diana herself spoke candidly about her loneliness in interviews, and this emotional state made her vulnerable to companionship outside her marriage. Hewitt, who was a cavalry officer in the Household Cavalry, offered her attention and kindness at a time when she needed emotional support. Their friendship gradually deepened into a romantic relationship, which lasted from 1986 until around 1991. However, the simple fact that this relationship began well after Harry's birth completely disproves any possibility of Hewitt being his biological father. Even Hewitt himself addressed the issue publicly several times, often with visible frustration at how persistent the rumor had become. In a 2002 interview, he made his denial as clear as possible, stating, "There really is no possibility whatsoever that I am Harry's father. Harry was already walking by the time my relationship with Diana began." His statement matched every established fact about the timeline, and no credible evidence has ever been presented to contradict it. The rumor's endurance, however, had less to do with truth and more to do with the public's fascination with Diana's private life. The tabloid press in the 1990s was relentless in its pursuit of royal gossip, and Diana's every move became front-page news. When her affair with Hewitt became public knowledge, many tabloids used it as an opportunity to link him to Harry, often pointing to superficial physical similarities such as hair color. Yet these comparisons ignored that King Charles himself had red hair as a child, and that Diana's own family, the Spencers, carried strong red-haired genetics. The resemblance, therefore, was nothing more than coincidence, though it was enough to fuel headlines for years. As time passed, both Diana and Hewitt ended their relationship and moved on with their lives. Diana continued her humanitarian work, and Hewitt faded from the public eye, occasionally appearing in interviews where he was asked the same question over and over again. Each time he repeated the same answer, that the rumor was false and that it hurt both him and the memory of Diana. Despite these consistent denials, the story persisted, largely because conspiracy theories surrounding the royal family tend to gain traction regardless of evidence. Furthermore, Prince Harry himself later addressed the matter directly in his memoir, Spare, published in 2023. In it, he described the rumor as laughable explaining that his mother did not meet Major Hewitt until long after he was born. He acknowledged that the tabloid speculation had followed him throughout his life and that it had caused unnecessary pain, not just for him, but for the memory of his mother as well. His statement aligned completely with the established facts of the timeline, leaving no doubt about his parentage.
It happened a few weeks ago, earlier this month, here at our cottage.
Harry's reaction also reflected a deeper frustration with how the media handled his mother's legacy. For him, the rumor was more than just a lie. It was an example of how invasive and cruel public curiosity could be. The story of his supposed different father had been printed so many times that it almost became folklore, even though no document, no DNA test, and no credible witness had ever supported it. The truth was simple and consistent across every verified record. Prince Harry was the son of King Charles and Princess Diana. Another claim that occasionally appears alongside the paternity myth is the alleged existence of a secret daughter named Sarah, supposedly born before William and Harry. This idea has been repeated in certain tabloids and online forums, yet it lacks any basis in fact. There is no official record, no birth certificate, and no verifiable statement from any credible source to support it. No historian, royal correspondent, or biographer who has studied Diana's life has ever confirmed such a claim. The British royal family's public records, which document every birth, marriage, and death, show only 2 children for Diana, which were Prince William and Prince Harry, and every other claim is entirely fictional. By the early 2000s, the rumor linking Hewitt to Harry had begun to lose strength as more factual timelines were widely circulated. The publication of official biographies, combined with interviews from people close to Diana, further confirmed that Hewitt did not enter her life until Harry was already a toddler. Even in documentaries and televised interviews, journalists who had once entertained the idea began to acknowledge that the dates simply did not align.
Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got.
Despite that, the theory never fully disappeared. It occasionally resurfaced whenever new attention was placed on the royal family, particularly during major life events such as weddings or Harry's military service. The repetition of this story became unfortunate and showed how persistent misinformation can be when it is tied to fame, emotion, and nostalgia. People who admired Diana often found it difficult to separate her personal pain from her public image, and stories that seemed dramatic or forbidden naturally attracted attention, even when they were false. In truth, Diana's real legacy had nothing to do with scandal. It was defined by her compassion, her humanity, and the way she used her influence to reach people who felt unseen. Reducing her memory to rumors and unverified stories does a disservice to her life's work. The myth about Harry's paternity was one of the many attempts to distort that image, but when examined with facts, it collapses entirely. Every date, every statement, and every official record aligns perfectly to confirm that Prince Harry's father is King Charles III. The persistent fascination with Diana's private life often overshadowed the clear evidence, yet time and truth have a way of prevailing. When her sons spoke about her in later years, they focused on her kindness, her warmth, and the lessons she taught them, not the gossip that surrounded her. Both William and Harry have made it clear that, regardless of the rumors, their mother's legacy remains one of love and strength. But here's the most intriguing part of all this, so stay tuned. The ancestry, fact, and tracing of Diana's real Indian lineage. As the paternity rumor gradually lost strength through facts and official statements, people's attention shifted toward another part of Princess Diana's story, one that was not about scandal but about heritage. This part of her history had been mentioned in several reports, and unlike the previous claims, it was based on verified records and scientific studies. It was the discovery that Princess Diana had a trace of Indian ancestry within her family line, something that later connected both Prince William and Prince Harry to a piece of Indian heritage many generations back. The story begins with a woman named Eliza Kewark, who lived in Surat, India, in the late 18th century. Historical records show that Eliza was of Indian origin, and she worked in the household of Theodore Forbes, a Scottish merchant employed by the East India Company. Their relationship went beyond that of employer and housekeeper, because the two had a child together named Catherine Scott Forbes. She later became the link between Eliza Kewark and the Spencer family, from which Diana descended. This means that Eliza Kewark was Diana's fifth great-grandmother, and through that lineage, both Prince William and Prince Harry inherited a small but genuine connection to India. Here is where it gets interesting. For years, historians and genealogists had noted records suggesting Eliza's background, but there was no concrete genetic proof to support the claim.
And it wasn't a difficult decision in the end. It's what I wanted. It's what I want.
That changed in 2013 when scientists conducted a DNA test on two of Diana's distant maternal relatives. The purpose of the test was simple: to confirm whether the family's claim of Indian heritage was true. When the results came in, they found a rare mitochondrial DNA haplogroup called R30b, which is found almost exclusively among people from South Asia, particularly in regions of India and Nepal. This genetic marker is passed down only through the maternal line, meaning from mother to daughter, and then to her children, without mixing with the father's DNA. Since the DNA was tested from relatives who shared the same maternal ancestry, it confirmed without doubt that Eliza Kewark's lineage carried Indian genes that flowed directly through to Princess Diana and her sons. The confirmation did not come from rumor or speculation, but from legitimate genetic research conducted by professional scientists. Genealogical experts and media outlets reported the findings, and it was even acknowledged in the British press. For the first time, it offered clear proof that one of Britain's most beloved figures had distant roots that extended far beyond Europe. This revelation did not change anything about her royal standing, but it added an interesting layer to her family story and gave historians a clearer view of how global connections existed even within old British lineages. Furthermore, the connection to the East India Company is also a key part of understanding this history. In the late 70s, British merchants and officials often lived and worked in major Indian port cities like Surat, which was a significant trade hub at the time. Theodore Forbes was one of them, working under the company's trading operations. He met Eliza Kewark while stationed there, and their partnership became part of the complex social fabric of British-Indian relations during that era. When their daughter Catherine was born, she was of mixed heritage, and her descendants eventually married into the Spencer family generations later. Through this lineage, Eliza Kewark's ancestry quietly continued, reaching Diana and, through her, the next generation of British royalty. Historical studies also clarified that Eliza Kewark was often described in early records with terms used by British officials of the time, such as Indian woman or housekeeper of foreign origin. These descriptions were typical for the period, reflecting the colonial language and classifications used during British rule in India. Yet, despite the limitations of those records, the combination of written documentation and modern DNA science helped reconstruct the truth about her identity and her role in the family's history. The Spencer family archives and independent genealogical databases confirmed the connection between Eliza Kewark's descendants and Diana's maternal ancestors. Her daughter, Catherine Scott Forbes, married into the family line that would eventually lead to Frances Shand Kidd, Diana's mother. This direct link from Eliza to Diana's maternal side completed the chain of lineage and proved that the family's Indian heritage was not just a rumor, but a historically documented fact supported by genetic evidence. The revelation also gave a new context to how interconnected families had become over centuries of trade, travel, and empire. The East India Company's presence in India had led to many such unions between British and Indian individuals, although few of them were documented as clearly as the Forbes-Kewark relationship. The fact that this connection survived through generations and ended up in one of the most well-known royal families in the world made it a unique example of how history can bridge continents and cultures through lineage. So, after learning the truth about the crash, the paternity rumors, and Diana's real ancestry. Do you think this is where Diana's secrets truly end? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.